September 28th, Jennifer Gledhill called police to report her husband, Matthew Johnson, missing.
Disappearance of Matthew Johnson, a Utah father and husband, and the arrest of his wealthy wife, Jennifer Gledhill.
They weren't crossing borders for freedom. They were being moved like inventory. On a fog-drenched morning, border guards in Eastern Europe storm a makeshift camp deep in the woods. Dozens of children are huddled inside tents, malnourished, terrified, and silent. Some are too weak to stand. Others don't even know what country they're in. What began as a random inspection became the front line of a global rescue, part of an unprecedented multi-nation crackdown stretching across 43 countries. Nearly 15,000 officers were involved, 1,194 potential victims were identified, 158 traffickers were arrested. Interpol called it Operation Global Chain, but what they uncovered wasn't just a network, it was a system, a billion-dollar machine that thrives on desperation, deception, and digital disguise. Before we go deeper, make sure you're subscribed, because the stories you'll hear here aren't headlines. They're the unfiltered reality behind the world's most profitable crime after drugs and weapons. And this time, the victims weren't smuggled, they were sold. Narrative, the operation that shocked the world. It started with fragments of a missing person report in Senegal, a suspicious travel agency in Turkey, a job offer gone wrong in Peru. For months, small anomalies popped up across continents, but none of them made sense in isolation. Then Interpol analysts began connecting the dots. Patterns emerged. Same recruiters, same bank transfers, same fake employment websites. Soon, investigators realized they weren't chasing scattered cases, they were chasing one enormous, coordinated operation. By early 2025, Interpol, Europol, and national police forces from Africa, Europe, South America, and Asia launched simultaneous raids in Latin America. Border agents intercepted trucks packed with undocumented workers, promised factory jobs, only to be sold into forced labor. In West Africa, a fishing village turned out to be a front for a child slavery network, supplying crew members to international trawlers. In Europe, nightclubs and massage parlors doubled as holding sites for women trafficked from Asia under fake modeling contracts. It was one of the most complex global missions in recent history, and behind every arrest was a chain of lies that started with a promise: a better life. Background and investigation, the hidden machinery of trafficking. Human trafficking is not random crime, it's organized economics. Each network functions like a corporation, with recruiters, transporters, enforcers, and financiers. They advertise on social media using stolen photos and fake recruiters. They pay hackers to make their websites look legitimate. They move victims using real travel agencies, bribed officials, or falsified documents. The process is chillingly efficient. Recruit through deception, transport across borders, confiscate documents, enforce debt. Exploit until the victim breaks. Once caught in this loop, escape becomes nearly impossible. Interpol investigators found that some victims were even leased between gangs, rented out for forced labor or prostitution depending on regional demand. In one case, a 17-year-old girl from Kenya was promised a job as a hotel receptionist in the Middle East. When she arrived, her passport was taken. She was sold 3 times in 2 years, first to a domestic servitude ring, then to a nightclub, and finally to a trafficking syndicate that moved her across borders like luggage. Each transaction was made using cryptocurrency. Each buyer was anonymous. The digital shadow, how technology fuels trafficking. Gone are the days when traffickers relied only on border crossings and fake IDs. Today, they use encryption, AI, and social media as their tools of trade. Interpol traced hundreds of recruitment attempts back to Telegram channels, Facebook job ads, and deepfake recruiters, AI-generated faces offering perfect opportunities abroad. Some traffickers even built fake travel websites to lure victims with legitimate-looking job applications. Once someone applied, their personal data was used to create false identities or loan records, trapping them in debt before they ever left home. In the dark corners of the web, entire marketplaces exist for buying and selling forged passports, digital identities, and access to smuggling routes. One investigator described it simply: "We're not chasing people anymore. We're chasing servers, data, and Bitcoin wallets." Human trafficking has gone digital, and that's what makes it so difficult to stop. The global web, where crime meets power. This operation didn't just expose criminals, it exposed connections. Trafficking doesn't exist in isolation, it feeds into broader criminal economies. Interpol's report revealed direct links between trafficking groups and drug cartels, arms smugglers, and money laundering networks. In Southeast Asia, forced labor victims were used to run online scam call centers that defrauded people worldwide, generating millions for organized crime. In Eastern Europe, trafficking rings laundered money through crypto exchanges and shell companies registered under fake names. In West Africa, profits from human trafficking were funneled into illegal mining and terror financing. Every rescued victim was part of a larger structure, a global supply chain of exploitation that crosses borders more easily than any legitimate business ever could. And behind it all lies a grim equation. Poverty plus conflict plus corruption is equal to human profit. The human cost. Behind every statistic, there's a story: a mother searching for her child who disappeared after accepting a modeling offer. A teenager working 18-hour shifts in a textile factory to pay off an impossible travel debt. A boy begging in the streets of Europe, his daily quota enforced by violence. In one rescue operation, authorities found a group of teenagers in a locked basement, all victims of a trafficking ring that operated through encrypted messaging apps. They had been promised education. Instead, they were trained to steal and beg. A senior Interpol officer later said, "We didn't find criminals. We found children pretending to be criminals." It's estimated that over 25 million people are currently trapped in trafficking or forced labor worldwide. And those are just the ones we can count. Every year, thousands vanish without a trace. Their lives erased, their stories buried under false identities. Law enforcement's struggle Operation Global Chain was historic, but also humbling. For every trafficker arrested, many more escaped. Networks restructured, new websites appeared within days. A Europol spokesperson admitted, "You can't arrest your way out of this." For every network dismantled, 2 new ones adapt, faster, smarter, and more digital. The sheer scale of coordination required between 43 countries pushed law enforcement to its limits. Intelligence sharing, language barriers, jurisdiction conflicts, everything slowed progress. And even when traffickers are caught, prosecution remains rare. Victims often fear testifying, governments lack resources, and cases drag on for years. The traffickers count on this. They operate in the grey zone between nations, knowing bureaucracy protects them better than any weapon ever could, the unseen victims. For the victims, rescue isn't the end, it's the beginning of another struggle. Many return home to stigma, trauma, or silence. Some are rejected by their own families. Others face retaliation from the same networks that once owned them. Psychologists working with rescued victims report a pattern: guilt. Many victims blame themselves for trusting the wrong person, for believing the wrong promise. But they were never naive. They were desperate. Desperation is the real currency of trafficking. And as long as the world continues to produce desperation through war, inequality, and corruption, traffickers will never run out of supply. The bigger picture, a crisis of humanity. Human trafficking isn't just a law enforcement issue. It's a mirror, reflecting everything we choose to ignore. It thrives where governments fail, where economies collapse, and where people stop caring. It's what happens when human life becomes cheaper than opportunity. Experts warn that as climate change, migration, and digital unemployment rise, new waves of vulnerable populations will emerge. And traffickers are already preparing to exploit them. This isn't a crime happening in the shadows, it's happening in plain sight. Every too-good-to-be-true job offer, every missing migrant, every child working in someone's home, they're all pieces of the same machine, a machine that runs quietly, efficiently, and globally. Reflection: the modern slave trade. We like to believe slavery is history, but it's alive, just wearing a different uniform. The chains are no longer made of iron. They're made of debt, fear, and digital control. And the traders don't sail ships anymore. They run websites. The trafficker of the 21st century is invisible, hiding behind a computer screen, a crypto wallet, or a fake job portal. The victims? They might be the person cleaning your hotel room, the worker building your phone, or the beggar you walked past without looking twice. Every link in the chain feeds the same system: supply, demand, silence. And until those chains are broken, collectively, globally, humanity will remain complicit. The next time you hear the word trafficking, don't think of distant borders or faceless criminals. Think of the ordinary people behind those numbers, the ones who were promised freedom and sold instead. Operations like these expose the system, but exposure isn't enough. Awareness must turn into accountability. If this story opened your eyes, subscribe, because on this channel, we dig where others don't. We uncover the hidden structures shaping the modern world, from cybercrime to global corruption to the underground economies that thrive in silence. Share this video. Talk about it. Because silence is the trafficker's strongest weapon, and as long as one person is sold, none of us are truly free.